A single father, 2 jobs, 1 impossible battle. Ethan Cole made a choice that night. The wrong choice, or maybe the right one. He still doesn't know. 3 days. That's all he had left before a judge would decide if he deserved to keep his daughter. 3 days before the state could rip Alice from his arms and hand her over to a woman who'd already abandoned her once. 3 days to somehow prove that love mattered more than the zeros in a bank account. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, he was just trying to get home. After running 2 jobs back to back, 14 hours under car hoods and serving coffee to people who looked right through him, Ethan could barely keep his eyes open. The storm hit hard, rain hammering his windshield like bullets, lightning cracking the sky wide open. He just wanted to see Alice, hold her, remind himself why he was killing himself day after day. Then he saw them. Twin girls, standing in the rain beside a car that cost more than he'd make in 5 years. Stranded, scared, waving for help. He should have kept driving. God knows he had enough problems of his own. But something in their faces, that helpless, desperate look, it reminded him of Alice, of being abandoned when you need someone most. So he stopped. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that those twin girls had a father, a powerful father, a father who would walk into a courtroom in 72 hours, sit behind a bench, and hold Ethan's entire world in his hands. Sometimes the people you save are the ones who end up saving you. And sometimes, one act of kindness becomes the only thing standing between you and losing everything. Before we continue, let us know in the comments section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ethan pulled over, his tires splashing through puddles as he came to a stop behind the luxury sedan. The rain was relentless, turning the world into a blur of gray and black. He sat there for a moment, engine running, watching the 2 figures huddle together under the slim shelter of their car's open door. "What are you doing, Ethan? You don't have time for this." But he was already unbuckling his seatbelt. He stepped out into the storm, rain immediately soaking through his work shirt. The twin girls looked up as he approached. Identical faces, maybe 19 or 20, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than his rent. Their mascara ran in dark streaks down their cheeks. "Car trouble," Ethan called over the thunder. The one on the left nodded, shivering. "It just died. We've been here for almost an hour. Our phones are dead, and no one stopped. Until you," the other one added, her voice small and grateful. Ethan glanced at the car. A Mercedes, sleek and black. The kind of vehicle he only saw when wealthy clients brought them into the garage. He walked around to the hood. "Mind if I take a look?" "Please," they said in unison. He popped the hood, rain pouring down his face as he examined the engine. It didn't take long to spot the problem. Corroded battery terminals, loose connection. Simple fix, but not something they could handle out here in the storm. "Your battery's shot," he said, closing the hood. "You're not going anywhere tonight. Not without a jump or a tow." The girls exchanged worried glances. "We can call our father," one of them said. But her voice lacked conviction. "He's probably busy, though. He's always busy." Something in the way she said it made Ethan pause. He recognized that tone. Disappointment wrapped in acceptance. "Look," he said, "I can give you a ride. There's a hotel about 15 minutes from here. You can call a tow in the morning." "You'd do that?" the girl on the right asked, genuine surprise in her eyes. Ethan shrugged. Can't leave you out here. Come on. They grabbed their bags and climbed into his beat-up Honda, a car that probably looked like a joke next to their Mercedes. But neither of them complained. They just looked relieved. I'm Sophie, the one in the passenger seat said as Ethan pulled back onto the highway. This is my sister, Maya. Ethan, he replied, focusing on the road. The wipers could barely keep up with the rain. Thank you for stopping, Maya said from the back seat. Really? Most people they see us and they keep going. People are scared these days, Ethan said. Can't blame them. But you stopped, Sophie pointed out. Ethan was quiet for a moment. I have a daughter. She's 6. If she was ever stranded somewhere, scared in the rain, I'd hope someone would stop for her. The car fell silent except for the drumming of rain on the roof. What's her name? Maya asked softly. Alice. That's beautiful, Sophie said. Then, hesitantly, Do you get to see her often? Ethan's jaw tightened. The question hit harder than she could have known. Every chance I get, which might not be for much longer. He hadn't meant to say that. It just slipped out. The weight he'd been carrying finally finding a crack to escape through. What do you mean? Maya asked. Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter. Her mother and we're divorced. She's trying to take full custody. Says I'm not fit to be a father because I work too much, don't make enough money. We go to court in 3 days. That's horrible, Sophie whispered. It is what it is, Ethan said, though his voice betrayed him. I'm doing everything I can. 2 jobs, saving every penny, showing up to every school event. But sometimes it feels like it's not enough. Like the world's already decided I'm not good enough. Maya leaned forward between the seats. Our father's like that, always working. We barely see him. He has all the money in the world. But we'd trade it all just to have dinner with him once a week, without him checking his phone. He thinks providing means everything, Sophie added quietly. He doesn't understand that we just want him there, present, that's all. Ethan glanced at her. You should tell him that. We've tried, Maya said. He doesn't listen. Says we don't understand what it takes to maintain our lifestyle. Sounds lonely, Ethan said. It is, Sophie admitted. Money doesn't fix loneliness. It just makes it more comfortable. They drove in silence for a while, rain pounding the car, lightning occasionally illuminating the dark highway. Ethan thought about Alice, about the custody hearing, about how he was fighting so hard to keep her while these girls were fighting just to be seen by their father. You seem like a good dad, Maya said eventually. The kind who stops in a storm, the kind who shows up. Ethan's throat tightened. I'm trying to be. That's more than most people do, Sophie said. He pulled into the hotel parking lot 20 minutes later. The girls gathered their things, and Sophie turned to him before getting out. Thank you, Ethan. Really. You didn't have to help us, but you did. She paused. I hope the judge sees what we see, that you're exactly the kind of father your daughter needs. Me too, Ethan said quietly. They disappeared into the hotel lobby, and Ethan sat there for a moment, rain still hammering his windshield. 3 days. He had 3 days to prepare for the fight of his life. He drove home through the storm, his mind racing. When he finally pulled into his apartment complex, it was past midnight. He climbed the stairs to his second-floor unit, exhausted down to his bones. Inside, Alice was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled up to her chin. Mrs. Rachel from next door sat in the armchair, reading a magazine. She tried to wait up for you, Mrs. Rachel whispered, standing. But she couldn't make it. Thank you for watching her, Ethan said, pulling out the $20 he'd set aside for her. It was money he couldn't afford to spend, but he had no choice. Mrs. Rachel waved it away. Keep it. You need it more than I do. After she left, Ethan knelt beside the couch, brushing Alice's hair from her face. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. Daddy? Hey, sweetheart. I'm home. I missed you, she mumbled, still half asleep. I missed you too, baby. He kissed her forehead. Go back to sleep. But she sat up instead, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, are we going to be okay? The question gutted him. She was 6 years old. She shouldn't have to worry about things like this. We're going to be fine, he lied, pulling her into a hug. Mommy says I might have to live with her, that you can't take care of me. Her voice was so small, so scared. Ethan held her tighter. Your mommy's wrong, Alice. I can take care of you. I will take care of you. No matter what happens in that courtroom, I'm your dad, and I love you more than anything in this world. I don't want to leave you, she whispered into his shoulder. You won't. I promise. It was a promise he had no idea if he could keep. But as he held his daughter in his small, shabby apartment, rain still pounding against the windows, Ethan Cole made a vow to himself. He would fight with everything he had. For her, always for her. 3 days until the courtroom. 3 days until his entire world would be decided by a stranger in a black robe. 3 days until he'd face Judge Benjamin Whitmore. He just didn't know it yet. The courthouse smelled like old wood and anxiety. Ethan sat at the defendant's table, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. His public defender, Mr. Clark, shuffled through papers beside him, occasionally muttering to himself. The man was doing his best. But Ethan could see it in his eyes. They both knew this wasn't going to be easy. Across the aisle, Lena sat perfectly composed in a navy dress that probably cost more than Ethan made in a month. Her lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Davison, looked like he ate cases like this for breakfast. Lena didn't even glance at Ethan. She hadn't looked at him once since they'd entered the courtroom. All rise, the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Benjamin Whitmore presiding. Ethan stood, his legs feeling like they might give out. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. He watched the door behind the bench, waiting for the judge who would decide if he was worthy of being called a father. The door opened, and Ethan's heart stopped. Judge Benjamin Whitmore walked in, tall, distinguished, late 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that swept across the courtroom. Ethan recognized him instantly, not from seeing him before, but from the resemblance, those eyes, that strong jawline. He'd seen those features just 3 nights ago, in the rain, on 2 young women who'd been stranded on the highway, Sophie and Maya. No, this couldn't be happening. The judge took his seat, adjusting his glasses as he opened the case file. His eyes scanned the first page, and Ethan saw it. The slightest pause. The judge's gaze flicked up, landing directly on him. Recognition passed between them, silent and electric. Good morning, Judge Whitmore said, his voice steady and authoritative. We're here today for the custody hearing of Alice Marie Cole. Counselors, are both parties ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor, Davison said smoothly. Ready, Your Honor, Mr. Clark added, though his voice lacked the same confidence. The judge nodded, but Ethan could see something working behind his eyes. A calculation, a decision being made in real time. Before we begin, Judge Whitmore said slowly. "I'd like to call for a brief recess. 15 minutes. We'll reconvene shortly." The bailiff looked confused, but nodded. "All rise." Everyone stood as the judge exited through the back door. Lena's lawyer leaned over to whisper something to her, probably just as confused as everyone else. Mr. Clark turned to Ethan. "That's unusual," he said. "Did something happen?" Ethan couldn't speak. His mind was racing, trying to process what this meant. The judge was their father, the twins' father, the man he'd helped 3 nights ago. And now that man held Alice's future in his hands. Was this good? Bad? Would the judge recuse himself? Would he hold it against Ethan somehow? 10 minutes crawled by like hours. Then the bailiff approached Ethan's table. "Mr. Cole, the judge would like to see you in his chambers." Lena's head snapped up. "Excuse me? On what grounds?" "Just Mr. Cole," the bailiff repeated firmly. Davison stood. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We object to any private conversation." "The judge didn't ask for your opinion, Counselor," the bailiff said. "Mr. Cole, please follow me." Ethan's legs felt like jelly as he stood. Mr. Clark grabbed his arm. "Whatever he asks you, be honest. Don't try to be clever, just honest." Ethan nodded and followed the bailiff through a side door, down a narrow hallway, and into a wood-paneled office. Judge Whitmore stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the city below. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," he said without turning around. Ethan sat in one of the leather chairs facing the desk. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. The judge finally turned, and his expression was unreadable. He walked to his desk and sat down, folding his hands on the surface. 3 nights ago, he began, my daughters called me from a hotel. They were stranded on Highway 89 in a terrible storm. Their car had broken down, and they'd been there for over an hour in the rain. No one stopped, no one helped. He paused. "Until you did." Ethan's mouth was dry. I didn't know who they were, Your Honor." "I know you didn't. That's exactly my point." The judge leaned back in his chair. "They told me about you. About your kindness. About how you had every reason to keep driving. You were exhausted, you had your own problems. But you stopped anyway. They told me about your daughter. About this custody battle. Your Honor, I swear I didn't." Judge Whitmore held up a hand. "I know you didn't plan this. I know this is pure coincidence. But here's my dilemma, Mr. Cole. I know who you are now. I know you helped my daughters when no one else would. And that creates a problem." Ethan's stomach dropped. "You're going to recuse yourself." "No," the judge said, and Ethan's head snapped up. "I'm not. Because I looked into your case last night. I couldn't sleep after Sophie and Maya told me about you, so I read your file. Every page, every document, every accusation your ex-wife has made against you." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Your ex-wife claims you're financially unstable, that you work too much, that you can't provide a proper home for Alice. But here's what I found interesting. She's provided no evidence of neglect, no evidence of abuse, no evidence that Alice is anything other than loved and cared for. What she has provided is a lot of opinions about what a father should be able to afford." Ethan didn't dare breathe. "I also made some calls," Judge Whitmore continued, "off the record, to Alice's school, to your neighbors, to the parents of her classmates. Do you know what they told me?" Ethan shook his head. "They told me you never miss a parent-teacher conference, that you volunteer for field trips even when you're working double shifts, that Alice talks about you constantly, About the bedtime stories you make up for her? About the park you take her to every Sunday? About how you teach her to be kind? The judge's voice softened. They told me she's a happy child who loves her father. Tears burned behind Ethan's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. I also had someone look into your ex-wife's background more thoroughly, the judge said, something her lawyer was very careful to avoid mentioning. Would you like to know what they found? What? Ethan whispered. Lena Cole has been arrested twice in the past year for possession of controlled substances. Cocaine. Both charges were dropped due to technicalities, but the arrests are on record. She's also been fired from her job 3 months ago for showing up intoxicated. Judge Whitmore pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. This is a full investigation report. Drug tests, witness statements, documentation of erratic behavior. Ethan stared at the folder like it might explode. Your ex-wife, the judge said quietly, is not fit to have custody of your daughter. She's been lying to this court, and now I'm going to make sure the truth comes out. Why are you telling me this? Ethan asked, his voice breaking. You could recuse yourself. Let another judge handle it. I could, Judge Whitmore agreed. But I won't, because 3 nights ago, you showed me something about character that I can't ignore. You helped 2 strangers when you had every reason not to. You showed kindness when you were exhausted. You stopped when everyone else kept driving. He stood up. That's the kind of man I want raising a child. Not because you helped my daughters, but because helping strangers when you can barely help yourself shows who you really are. Ethan couldn't hold it back anymore. Tears spilled down his cheeks. I'm going back out there, the judge said, and I'm going to present this evidence. Your ex-wife's lawyer is going to object. He's going to argue. But the facts don't lie, Mr. Cole, and neither does character. He walked toward the door, then paused. My daughters asked me to tell you something. They said to tell you that Alice is lucky, that she has the kind of father they wish they'd had growing up. His voice grew thick. They were right. I wasn't there for them the way I should have been. But you? You show up for your daughter every single day. That's what matters. The judge opened the door. Let's go finish this. Ethan walked back into the courtroom in a daze. Lena's eyes were sharp, suspicious. Davison looked like a predator sensing blood in the water. But Ethan didn't care anymore. For the first time in months, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. All rise, the bailiff called. Judge Whitmore took his seat, his expression now completely professional. He picked up the folder Ethan had just seen in his chambers. Before we hear opening statements, the judge began, the court has received new information relevant to this case. Information that was not disclosed by the petitioner's counsel. Davison stood immediately. Your Honor, what information? We weren't notified. Sit down, Mr. Davison. The judge's voice was steel. You weren't notified because your client deliberately concealed it. Lena's face went pale. Mrs. Cole, Judge Whitmore said, looking directly at her, you've presented yourself to this court as a stable, responsible parent, seeking to protect your daughter from an unfit father. But you failed to mention your 2 arrests for drug possession. You failed to mention being terminated from your employment. You failed to mention that you're currently under investigation for substance abuse. The courtroom erupted. Davison was on his feet, objecting. Lena was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face, but they looked like tears of panic, not grief. Your Honor, these charges were dropped. This is slander. The charges were dropped on technicalities. Judge Whitmore said calmly. The arrests are still on record. The drug tests are still positive. The witness statements are still documented. He held up the folder. This is a full investigation completed by social services. It's all here. He looked at Ethan, and for just a moment, something passed between them. Gratitude, recognition, understanding. This court, Judge Whitmore announced, awards full custody of Alice Marie Cole to her father, Ethan Cole. Mrs. Cole, you'll be allowed supervised visitation pending completion of a rehabilitation program. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down, and Ethan Cole's world changed forever. Ethan couldn't move. He sat frozen at the table, the judge's words still echoing in his mind. Full custody. Alice was his. She was staying with him. Mr. Clark was shaking his hand, saying something about this being unprecedented, about how lucky they were. But Ethan barely heard him. He was watching Lena across the aisle, watching her crumble as Davison whispered urgently in her ear, probably already planning an appeal that would go nowhere. She'd lied. She'd tried to take Alice away from him with lies, and it had almost worked. Mr. Cole? The bailiff approached. You're free to go. Ethan stood on shaky legs. He looked up at the bench, but Judge Whitmore was already gone, disappeared through the back door into his chambers. There was so much Ethan wanted to say, so much gratitude burning in his chest. But the moment had passed. He walked out of the courthouse into brilliant sunshine. The storm from 3 nights ago felt like a lifetime ago now. Everything felt different. The air, the light, the weight on his shoulders, all of it transformed in the span of an hour. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Rachel. How did it go? She asked the moment he answered. I won, Ethan said, and saying it out loud made it real. I won, Mrs. Rachel. Alice is staying with me. He could hear her crying on the other end of the line. Oh, thank God. Thank God, Ethan. Alice has been so worried. She kept asking if you were coming back. Tell her I'm coming home right now. Tell her we're going to celebrate. He practically ran to his car, his hands shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. The drive home blurred together. Streets and traffic lights and turns he made on autopilot. All he could think about was Alice. Holding her, telling her she never had to worry again. When he burst through the apartment door, Alice was sitting on the floor with her coloring books. She looked up, her eyes wide and frightened, searching his face for answers. Daddy? Ethan dropped to his knees and opened his arms. She ran to him, and he caught her, holding her so tightly he thought he might never let go. You're staying with me, he whispered into her hair. Forever. You're staying with me forever, baby. Alice pulled back, looking up at him with those big brown eyes. Really? I don't have to go? Really? I promise. You're mine, and nothing's going to change that. She threw her arms around his neck and started crying, big, heaving sobs of relief. Ethan cried too, right there on the floor of their tiny apartment, holding the only thing in the world that mattered. Mrs. Rachel watched from the doorway, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I'll give you 2 some time, she said softly, and slipped out. For a long while, they just sat there together. Eventually, Alice pulled back and wiped her nose on her sleeve. Can we have ice cream? She asked, her voice still shaky. Ethan laughed, a real, genuine laugh that felt like it came from somewhere deep inside him that had been locked away for months. We can have all the ice cream you want. They went to the small ice cream shop 2 blocks away, the one with the red awning and the owner who always gave Alice extra sprinkles. She got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles and gummy bears. Ethan got vanilla and they sat at the little table by the window, watching people walk by. "Daddy," Alice said, licking her spoon, "what made the judge change his mind?" Ethan thought about that stormy night, about two girls standing in the rain, about making a choice to stop when he could have kept driving. "I helped some people," he said, "when they needed it. And I guess sometimes kindness comes back to you in ways you don't expect." "Like karma?" Alice asked. She'd learned that word from a cartoon. "Yeah," Ethan smiled. "Like karma." They finished their ice cream, and as they walked home hand in hand, Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Cole? This is Benjamin Whitmore." Ethan stopped walking. "Your Honor, I don't know how to thank you. What you did today." "I did what was right," the judge interrupted gently. "That's all. But I'm calling because my daughters would like to see you again, to properly thank you. We'd like to invite you and Alice to dinner this Saturday, if you're available." Ethan looked down at Alice, who was watching him curiously. "We'd be honored," he said. "Good. I'll have Sophie text you the address. 7 o'clock. And Mr. Cole, bring your appetite. My daughters have been planning this menu for 2 days." Saturday came faster than Ethan expected. He borrowed a tie from his neighbor and made sure Alice wore her favorite dress, the yellow one with sunflowers. They drove to an address in the hills, where houses had gates and driveways that could fit 10 of Ethan's car. Sophie and Maya answered the door, both grinning. "You came," Sophie said, pulling him into a hug. "Of course we came," Ethan replied. Maya knelt down to Alice's level. "You must be Alice. Your dad's told us so much about you." Alice hid behind Ethan's leg, suddenly shy. But Maya just smiled and held out her hand. "Want to see our game room? We have every video game ever made. Well, almost." Alice looked up at Ethan for permission. He nodded, and she tentatively took Maya's hand. They disappeared into the house, leaving Sophie and Ethan in the foyer. "She's beautiful," Sophie said. "Looks just like you." "Thank you for this," Ethan said. "For all of it. If you and your sister hadn't told your father—" "You would have figured it out anyway," Sophie interrupted. "People like you always do. You fight for what matters." Judge Whitmore appeared at the top of the stairs, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. He looked different outside the courtroom, softer, more like a regular father. "Ethan," he said warmly, coming down to shake his hand. "Welcome to our home." Dinner was loud and full of laughter. Alice came out of her shell, especially when Maya taught her how to play a racing game and let her win. Sophie told embarrassing stories about their father, who took it all with good-natured groans. Ethan sat back and watched, marveling at how quickly things could change. After dinner, while the girls taught Alice a card game, Judge Whitmore led Ethan out to the back patio. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like stars. "My daughters told me something the other day," the judge said, staring out at the view. "They said I was never there when they were growing up, that I chose work over them." He paused. They were right. "You're here now," Ethan offered. "Because of you," Judge Whitmore said. "Seeing what you were willing to sacrifice for Alice, how you fought for her even when everything was stacked against you. It made me realize what I'd been missing, what I'd lost by always putting work first." He turned to face Ethan. "I can't get back the time I lost with them, but I can do better moving forward, and I wanted to thank you for that reminder." "I think," Ethan said quietly, "we were both supposed to meet that night. You needed to see what being present means, and I needed I needed to remember that good things can still happen, that the world isn't always against you. Judge Whitmore smiled. My daughters have asked if you and Alice would like to come back next week, and the week after that. I think they're hoping to make this a regular thing. We'd like that, Ethan said. We'd like that a lot. They stood there in comfortable silence, two fathers who'd found something unexpected in each other. Respect, friendship, understanding. Inside, they could hear the girls laughing. Alice's high-pitched giggle mixed with Sophie and Maya's voices, creating a sound that felt like family. 3 months later, Ethan sat in the same small apartment, but everything felt different. Alice was asleep in her room, and he was looking at the photos on his phone, pictures from the past few months. Alice and the twins at the zoo, the 4 of them at a baseball game. Judge Whitmore teaching Alice how to ride a bike. His life hadn't gotten easier exactly. He still worked 2 jobs. Money was still tight. But none of that mattered anymore because Alice was with him, safe and loved and happy. And he'd gained something he never expected, a family. Not by blood, but by choice, by kindness, by one decision to stop in a storm when he could have kept driving. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Movie night next Saturday? Maya's choice this time, so prepare for something weird. Ethan smiled and typed back, "We'll be there." He set his phone down and walked to Alice's room. She was curled up with her stuffed elephant, breathing softly. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you, sweetheart." As he turned to leave, she mumbled in her sleep, "Love you too, Daddy." Ethan closed the door gently and leaned against the wall, letting the weight of everything wash over him. The fear, the fight, the victory, the unexpected grace of strangers who became family. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. Sometimes stopping for 2 girls in a storm saves your entire world. Sometimes the people you help become the people who save you. And sometimes, when you fight for what matters most, when you show up and refuse to give up, the universe fights back for you. Ethan Cole had learned that the hard way, and he'd never forget it. So if you're watching this right now, wherever you are in the world, remember this. Kindness matters. Showing up matters. Fighting for the people you love matters. You never know when one small decision, one moment of choosing to help instead of walking away, might change everything. If this story touched your heart, do us a favor. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Soul Story for more tales that remind us what it means to be human. Drop a comment and let us know. Have you ever had a small act of kindness change your life? We'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep showing up, keep being kind, keep fighting for what matters.